Okay, Wednesday, 17 April, year of our Lord 2024. Thank you for joining us to the second part of the late afternoon, early evening edition of the War Room. Of course, explosive on Capitol Hill as we fight the rule. Absolute, complete disgrace of Speaker Johnson of what's going on here. But I want to get in. I want to go to Rome, and I thank Ben for sticking around for us. Ben, I actually think it's more powerful now than it was this morning, because now we know what they're trying to do. They're trying to fund. It's a full-on effort, maniacal effort to fund this failed conflict in Ukraine. And Russ Vought said it earlier in that tweet that this is our Brexit moment from the neocons, that we're just not going to support what these maniacal, obsessed, and this is as big a part of the Republican Party as is the Democrats. They want to be in wars everywhere. They want to be underwriting wars everywhere. This one in Ukraine, there's something particularly offensive about what they're doing here. And Ben, I want to go back some of the pieces, but I particularly want to drill down on one we didn't have time to spend on this morning, and that is what the Ukrainian people think about this. The Ukrainian people, the moms and dads, because remember, Ukraine's the central reason that Ukraine this war is over. Despite the sacrifice, the courage, the valor of the Ukrainian people, is the misguided strategy of Zelensky and these guys depending upon their sociopathic overlords in the EU and NATO. But fundamentally, and this is why they had this coup with their two most revered field officers, these two generals who sat there and said, we need fresh combat troops, and we need at least 500,000, and we need their age to be around 27 years old. We can't fight anymore this trench warfare, war of attrition, with 42-year-old, average age of 42 years old. Remember, half of them be older. That's just insane, given the tough battlefield conditions. Go back to that New York Times piece. I want people in this audience to understand, as we go through these fights over the next couple of days, and we have this vote, it looks like on Saturday night or Sunday, about this, what are the Ukrainian moms and dads focused on?
Saving their kids, saving their sons, Steve. Here's an article that we touched on in the morning show from the New York Times. You read the article, it's obviously using its New York Times type language, but it could have been written by Stephen K. Bannon, because this is a point that you've been making really for 2 years on the show. In Ukraine's west, draft dodgers run and swim to avoid the war. It's an article which refers to the avoidance explicitly as an exodus of young men trying to leave, and they're fleeing across this river, the Tysa River, which it calls, it says in the local Ukrainian language, it's called, nicknamed River Death, because so many people have died trying to cross it. Of course, being sent to the front line is considered to be the worst of the two options. So people are taking their chances with this icy river. And I have here an excerpt. I'll just read it very quickly. But this, I think, illustrates, Steve, the fact that it's not that the Ukrainians aren't patriotic and they're not prepared, because they have been sacrificing to fight for their country. It's the fact that when you can see that the only viable conclusion of this war being a certain thing, at that point you have to make the calculation, well, if we're going to sit down and talk at some point with Putin and with Russia, why do I just need to die as cannon fodder, throw myself into the meat grinder if it's not going to change the fundamental result? And that, I think, is a very reasonable calculation. Here's how the New York Times frames that. As Ukraine's battlefield prospects have sagged, draft dodging has been on the rise. It obviously doesn't sort of break down the reasons, but I think if you have eyes to see, you'll see the reason why that is the case. And it is basically, it's an article that simply says that the trade, the human trafficking here of young Ukrainians is now the dominant smuggling game in Ukraine, the dominant black market game, which has gone from counterfeit cigarettes, where you can get basically $200 for a big batch of cigarettes to now $10,000 per person, per human being, up from 2000. And the reason, Steve, is exactly 56 criminal gangs now. They've numbered them. 56 criminal gangs are involved in this trade. And of course, it's a market. People smuggling is a market. It's a market in the Mediterranean. It's a market on the southern border of the United States, and a market here in Ukraine. And the criminals are responding to this market. It's a very sad story. And what's the most tragic thing, Steve? I'll close on this observation, on this point. The most tragic thing here is that this constant waste of life is avoidable. It has been avoidable for at least 2 years. And yet it's just the political will that this war continues and more people are dying. It's absolutely tragic.
Mersheimer told us this even when the 2014 color revolution took place. Folks, and this is why our fight is righteous. We have to, like Brexit broke off from the EU, we have to break off from the neoliberal neocon mentality. If we don't, the United States is going to be the underwriter, and that means you, the taxpayer, is going to be the underwriter of these continual conflicts. We could have gotten to the negotiating table. Well, number one, if Victoria Nuland and the deep state in the United States was not intimately involved with the EU and with NATO in overthrowing a democratically elected government. Now, were they bad guys in that government? You betcha. Were they close to Putin? You betcha. Would the election have big league problems? You betcha. But it was a democratically elected government that was overthrown by a color revolution that came from the noggins and from the of Victoria Nuland in that crowd. Fiona Hill, Victoria Nuland have been working away at this nonstop. The same people, the same types of people, working with the same people that over the last couple of days in Brussels, which is to me so shocking, we're trying to get Sharma up over the next couple of days, the national conservatism. And look, I've never been a huge fan of the national conservatism thing in Europe because I do think I do think that it was to take one's eye off the ball when they came here to the United States. They were definitely neocon, a big league. It's one of the reasons that yours truly and other populist America Firsters were never invited. But I think they've made amends. You got Sharma. They had a great conference set up in Brussels, and the police were called on them to shut it down. Nigel Farage, I believe, one of the 2 or 3 greatest figures in all of British politics, and I mean in history, who basically gave, with his hard work and endeavor, gave his country everything he had to basically throw off the shackles of the European, the EU overlords, and look at the fight that's been subsequently since then. I think it's one of the reasons you're going to have, as you know, Ben, a major inflection point coming up quickly as the Tory party gets washed out to sea because of issues like the illegal alien invaders coming into to UK and overrunning it. They shut down the very people that want us to vote $60 billion, want us to support the very people that shut down the National Conservatism Conference that had people like Viktor Orban and Nigel Farage and others that are heroes to people here in the United States. It was Mersheimer right that the sociopathic overlords in Brussels, in the city of London, in the halls of power in Paris and in Berlin, did they lead the Ukrainian people down the Primrose Path? So here we are with $60 billion that is just going to go to the arms manufacturers. It's just going to go to the deep state. It's just going to go to their buddies in NATO, and particularly going to go to the oligarchs in Zelensky's power group that are still in power in Ukraine, the anti-democratic forces there. Was Mersheimer right? Are we leading them down the path to, as the New York Times story reinforced that, we're leading them down to the path to fight to the last Ukrainian soldier is available to give his life for his country?
Yes, Steve, he couldn't have been more right or more prophetic. And we covered on the show a couple of days ago that the Ukrainian army has now resorted to employing, if that's the right word, the use of amputees, even up to double amputees back lines, which in any war is pretty much unheard of. But in this war, that's where that's what they're doing. They're bringing in double amputees, people who've lost limbs in two separate incidents. By the way, I think it was the Washington Post article. We broke this down last week. They're now once they're being patched up, they are going back to the front line. That is what fighting down to the last Ukrainian looks like in practice, Steve. Look. There's an article. I sent this through to Denver. I don't know if they've got time to put this on the screen. It's in yesterday's Foreign Affairs, right? The talks that could have ended the war in Ukraine. This goes back to the Boris Johnson thing in April of 2022 and the sabotage of the peace deal that Turkey had negotiated. I've only really seen this thing mentioned, thanks Denver. I've really only ever seen this mentioned on the War Room and by, of course, President Putin when he spoke recently. This has now, so 2 years later, okay, we're in mid-April, so it's 2 years almost to the week. In fact, I think it's basically around April the 15th it happened, the sabotage. This has not, it's not only broken into the mainstream media and they're breaking this down of how those talks failed. This is in Foreign Affairs, Steve, right? It doesn't get more in terms of sort of
no, it's foreign, the deep states. Hold it. It's the deep state's Vanity Fair. Foreign Affairs is it. That's the thing they. I want to make sure people understand this. What Ben just said. Let's not bury the lead. Putin would say this, but the war room, because we're trying to give you facts. And of course, what they say? Oh, they're just recycling Putin's propaganda and talking points. No, we're not. We have people on the inside. We're sourced. We knew exactly what happened. And so, 2 years after the fact, Foreign Affairs, which is their Vanity Fair, that is like the big kahuna. If you're on the pages of Foreign Affairs, I mean, that is as close to Holy Writ. That is their equivalent of the New Testament. Okay, no, that's Holy Writ to the deep state crowd, and they're laying out. But I spend a minute on this because I want people to be fully informed when they call 202-224-3121. It's best to call during working hours. Remember, working hours or not, they shut down quickly and they'll jam up these lines. That's why you got to go to Grace is going to show tomorrow in Las Vegas how to make the best use for your operating leverage of Bill Blaster that you can get around some of the stuff. But make sure you call. Part of the reason when you call is that, hey, we don't want any money. We want no on Ukraine for one reason, no money whatsoever. The war is over, and you guys had a chance to end this before it really started. Just give me a highlight reel of Foreign Affairs of how they're reinforcing what we said here for over 2 years on the War Room.
Well, one of the things, by the way, Steve, that the War Room said on the Boris Johnson sabotage was that America. I remember we had the conversation. And I basically said my instinct here, my hunch here is that Boris Johnson wouldn't have gone and done this by himself. He would have done this with the United States behind him, pushing him, acting as a proxy for their interests. And that's basically here in the Foreign Affairs article. The reason that the Americans didn't want these talks to go ahead, and actually the reason I can understand this, by the way, was that America was unhappy with the idea of being bound in for security guarantees, and that is a legitimate consideration to have, I think. But that was fundamentally the reason behind Boris Johnson's maneuvers. But I'm very, very happy that the War Room sort of had correctly joined the dots on that. But that's the issue there, Steve. Security guarantees. If I may very, very quickly come back to something that you were saying earlier about the 660 billion. Look, here's an article, by the way, in the Telegraph, which we mentioned on the morning show, headlined "Crude, cheap and deadly. Russian glide bombs are pounding Ukraine into surrender." We mentioned earlier that this was the first article I spotted in the mainstream media that actually ties the word surrender to Ukraine. Digging into the article itself, it basically makes an interesting point in terms of strategy and why Ukraine is on the path to surrender. It's basically laying out that if we're supplying small inventory of expensive missiles with say a 99.99 accuracy rate. Now, it doesn't mention the Patriot missiles, but that would be a great example, which cost, I think, $4 million, right, each. That's great for Lockheed Martin. What's the strategic thing to have? Those missiles, 99.99% accuracy, or missiles which cost 95, basically couple of $100 with a 95% accuracy? Well, of course, it's going to be those missiles that you can just basically put on a production line and make sort of thousands of times as many for a fraction of the cost. Here's the point. So you ask yourself, well, hang on. Why are these genius generals in the Pentagon sending $4 million a piece missiles to Ukraine? And of course, that's exactly the answer, because of this 60 billion. It is going to the military industrial complex. They are pretty tactically useless compared to drones, which just cost a couple of $100 each. But this war isn't really about the point about this war, and this is something that you've been sort of scratching at for ages. The point about this war isn't the winning of it. It's the amount of money you can graft out of the system, out of American taxpayers, before you call it a day. It's an inevitable day, because, of course, for our sociopathic overlords, they have never cared less about the Ukrainians who are being sort of blown to bits, limbless, shrapnelled to bits. That's just not even the issue. What they want are the photo opportunities, the photo conferences, smiling, saying we're standing for democracy, whilst making trillions of dollars from one forever war after another. But I like the way that the Telegraph actually mentioned this point here, that you've got these missiles that with a 99.99% accuracy versus missiles with a 95% accuracy. I'm adding in the price differentials there. But you can see how the White House is beholden to the Pentagon and to the military industrial complex, because all these generals, with the huge sort of straps and all the coloured badges, say, we need sort of all these missiles. We need them at $4 million a pop. What good are they, Steve? Because as I say,
the two
strategy is leading Ukraine on to surrender. Excuse me, I'll close there.
Kharkiv, the second biggest city, is now under siege. I think that's going to fall here in days or weeks. Mainstream media won't talk about that. The two things American people should know when you're calling and talking to your congressman about why you want no more money is that the Zelensky government is shanghaiing amputees and double amputees to go back to the front. At the same time, the parents are paying $10,000 a kid to smuggle them out of Ukraine so they won't be drafted. This is after a year of this new draft law. Forget volunteers. There are no volunteers. They're all press ganged. It's like worse than Nelson's Navy back in the 18th century. So Ben, thank you for doing this. You're going to be part of the coverage. Remember that right now it looks like the vote's going to take place Saturday night, Sunday, Monday. Who knows? 202-224-3121. Give your congressman the old what for of this disaster. This is sociopathic overlords driving this, and it's got to stop, and we got to stop it now. It has to be stopped now. Not another penny. Ben Harnwell, what's your social media? Where do people get you?
Getter, Steve, is my social media platform of choice. Type in my surname at Harnwell. Top of my feed is a story that the Romanian far right party have asked their candidates to undergo a lie detector test in order to weed out the infiltrators. And I've sort of posted that article with what I think is a great suggestion. We should start doing this in MAGA. MAGA should be insisting on this for GOP candidates. Everyone, without exception, with the lie detector, will you put America first? It's exploding right now. It's on the top of my feed.
I love it. Ben Harnwell, lessons from the Transylvania. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve. God bless.
Boy, think about it. Lie detector test. Will you put the American citizens first, America first? Brandon Showalter, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm misreading. There's so much other stuff going on. I'm trying to spend enough time on this topic. It's not my line of country, but it's central to the destruction of American traditional culture and society, and really an abomination. Are we getting better news ever since that report? Or is there good news coming out of this fight against this radical transgender ideology, sir?
I think you're referring to the CAS report in England, the UK. And yes, that is having, I think, some meaningful ripples across Europe, certainly. But even here, I'm seeing a few little signs that are encouraging to me. The CAS report was a 3.5 or 4 year long report that was authored by Dr. Hilary Cass. The initial recommendations led to the closure of the Tavistock Gender Clinic in London. And now it looks as though the UK is going to be very close to completely moving away from any kind of medicalized protocol that gender transitioning with puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and surgeries are on their way out, we hope. Still going to be watching very closely. The NHS stopped, dramatically scaled back the use of blockers, and now there's other talk about reviewing the cross-sex hormone policy. Here in America, we are now seeing the courts, start to wrangle over this. The Supreme Court of the United States just allowed Idaho's ban on transing kids to remain in effect, whereas in Ohio, a state court blocked that law from being implemented, and they're probably now facing several years of litigation. They think that they will win in the Ohio Supreme Court, my sources say. But yes, we're just very much now at the beginning of the judiciary to adjudicate the constitutionality of these bans on chemically and surgically transing minor children. So it's a start, but there are many other dynamics here that we'll have to fight in America that the UK is much farther along than we are.
Break down, give me Idaho, the decision there first, and what did the Supreme Court, let's just take Idaho. What did the court actually say in Idaho? And then how did the Supreme Court have their back?
Well, Idaho, like about 24 other states, I think, has implemented a ban on what they call gender-affirming care, which is the most misleading euphemism ever. The use of hormone blockers, cross-sex hormones, and surgeries on minors. The Supreme Court allowed it to remain in effect. There had been a challenge to it. They weren't adjudicating the bill on its merits per se. It was more of a technical kind of thing, but 6-3 split, the conservatives with the state of Idaho and the three. And so it was not, again, I just want to stress, this is just the very beginning. There was, so the plaintiffs that had complained, they are not addressing the substance of the bill, but they did allow, they said that Idaho could keep its law prohibiting this medicalization to remain in effect. So it's too early to tell whether or not this will continue to remain in effect long term, but it is a very encouraging sign early on, to see this. What it says to me, Steve, and I've thought this and heard this over the years, is that the ACLU has almost the entire legal left sewn up. And the ACLU has been the chief organ in so many of these states filing lawsuits against these bans.
Whoa. I thought the ACLU was the great leader in free speech and for free speech rights. What are you talking about? I know the Planned Parenthood is in back of funding a lot of this. Tell me about the ACLU.
The ACLU, it's amazing because my philosophy about the ACLU has been, they're occasionally right, defending free speech. They have been completely ideologically captured by the trans Borg. And there's a money trail straight from, with Jennifer Billick, who I know you've interviewed, and she's a good friend of mine. She's exposed the money of the Arcus Foundation, which that's, John Stryker, his money from the medical industrial complex. He's a huge donor to the ACLU. Their Trans LGBT Justice Center. They are the ones that make these lawsuits against certainly Arkansas, which was the first state to pass one of these bans in 2021. The ACLU is ready. As soon as these laws go into effect, they file the lawsuits, they find plaintiffs, and they will go to bat for the transing of kids. So they have completely abandoned whatever principle they had that we may have thought was sane, because they are all in. The ideological capture is so extensive. They believe trans rights are the next frontier of civil rights, and they have completely wedded themselves to their cause, and there's big money behind them. So I know even, former ACLU people who've left the ACLU, and part of this, it's just they're completely sewn up, and this is the dogma of the legal left. You don't find very many dissenters. There are some, but I wasn't surprised to see, let's just say I was not surprised at all to see the 6-3 split on this issue. I mean, we'll see if the Supreme Court, which they have jurisdiction, they can decide whichever cases they eventually take up on this issue. And the last time they did adjudicate these gender claims, it was actually not very good. It was 6-3 with Gorsuch and Roberts joining in the Bostock decision in 2020, where they granted legal status to transgender status. But the medicalization of children, I think, will be another interesting thing to watch. There are many unknowns. But again, I just want to reiterate that I am initially encouraged that they allowed Idaho's ban to remain in effect, and we'll see what happens with other states, as there have been other appellate courts that have allowed the ban to stay in place as well.
Can you hang on for a second, because I just got to talk about this ideology for a second. And of course, we have Dr. Daugherty next, also about he's going to be can't make it, I don't think, tomorrow for the 2-hour discussion we're going to have. We're going to actually talk to him now. We're going to be live in Vegas. Make sure you go to worm.org. Still get a late sign up in. We'll try to jam you in. Birch Gold also, I think we've done a pretty good job today with Rickards and others. You've seen these horrific bills. Over a $2 trillion deficit. They still got to jam another $100 billion in there as a supplemental and must be stopped. See why gold's at an all-time high. The gold and dollar are kind of moving in inverse related. But talk to the folks at Birch Gold, particularly talk to them about all their tax-deferred instruments. Birchgold.com/Bannon. Get Philip Patrick in the team and do it today. Gold hitting another all-time high, over $2,400.
More than just beautiful dance. It's a touch of the divine. More than just legends. It's the beautiful culture and wisdom of China before communism. More than just a performance. It's an experience that awakens the soul. See it at least once in your lifetime. Shen Yun, an all-new production every year.
Remember, traditional culture before communism, I would actually say before Marxism. That's what we're seeing here in this country. The reason I recommend everybody go see Shen Yun, this beautiful, classical, traditional Chinese culture of 10,000 years, the culture of Lao Baijing, our allies in taking down the Chinese Communist Party. You'll see what their civilization once was, and you'll see it today. Two different things, because remember, the buried lead there is before communism, before Marxism. And that's what we see. We're going to get Brandon Showalter back up in a second, because the radical ideology driven by the neo-Marxists is attacking the traditional values of our country, and particularly the traditional family structure of our country. Also, there's been a lot of complaints with the cyber attacks at the pharmacies, at the medical. Also, don't forget the supply chains. The CCP controls 100% of the supply chains of active pharmaceutical ingredients. Not 99%, 100%. The people that have worked around that are Jace Medical. Just go to jacemedical.com. Go check it out. Dr. Sean Rowland and the team have done a terrific job of making sure you can have access to your medicines and not be hung up either by cyber attacks, other things that happen that shut down pharmacies, or the supply chains in case the balloon goes up in the South China Sea and the Straits of Taiwan, which it will. JaceMedical.com. Check it out. So before I let you go, Brandon, just give me a quick summary. This radical ideology that's you're saying it's taken over the medical profession, it's taken over the American Medical Association, it's taken over ACLU. In a nutshell, because I keep telling people this is one of the most radical ideologies and philosophies I've ever heard of, and I believe it's the predicate for the whole transhumanism movement. But what is it? Why has it some of the most powerful and greatest institutions in this country? The American Medical Association, ACLU. I don't say I agree with what these institutions stand for, but they're powerful. They've been around a long time. How has this ideology gotten in there and taken them over?
Well, I would defer to Jennifer Billick, who, I just cannot applaud her journalism enough. You can never underestimate the power of humongous money that's driving this. The medical industrial complex stands to profit handsomely, because if you can use an ideology, and they are, to brainwash a generation of young people, many of whom have mental health issues, to believe that they can be something other than their sex, you can not only break down society, but you can make lifelong customers. And so people, I mean, you get a whole generation of kids on puberty blockers, just a few thousand of them, you're talking millions of dollars. So you cannot ignore the appeal of money. But no, I definitely believe, and as a Christian, I would be remiss if I didn't say that there's a distinct evil, sort of spiritual evil component to this just abominable wickedness that drives families apart. I mean, I spoke to a mom not so long ago when her daughter was estranged after she got her breasts amputated and went on these drugs. She cried every single day. This is shredding and rupturing American families right and left. It is, as you say, one of the most demonic and diabolical scourges that we have ever faced as a culture. And yes, people in high places, evil men and women who stand to profit handsomely, are fomenting tremendous discord in our culture with this dogma. And yes, it has captured all of our elite institutions. They have become convinced that this is the next frontier of civil rights, as of other previous movements. And so that's where I use the phrase ideological capture perhaps too much, but that's what this is. This drives the agenda of the day. It is effectively the state religion of America. It has that strong a grip on our elite institutions.
The state religion of America. I want you to remember that, where you heard it and who you heard it from. Brandon, where do they go? Where do folks get your content?
ChristianPost.com is where my colleagues do such great reporting. I'm there too, writing columns from time to time. Please do check out our documentary-style podcast. I'm currently working on another season. Our landing page for that is generationindoctrination.com, and that's also available on all platforms. And if you want to hear stories kind of like the mom I was just describing, please do go see Dead Name, which can be found at deadnamedocumentary.com. That will give you a very poignant glimpse into what this is like for families. The suffering they have endured is excruciating. Deadnamedocumentary.com. Please go see it.
Brandon Showalter, thank you very much. Honored to have you on here.
Thank you, Steve.
Dr. Daugherty, thanks, brother. Dr. Daugherty, you're not going to be with us physically tomorrow. We're going to try to get you up on screen, but make the case. Tomorrow, we're going to have an open town hall with the War Room Posse as part of the end of our Force Multiplier Academy. We got all the experts. Mike Lindell has gone to the Supreme Court. You're a big part of that. What are you telling the Supreme Court about machines that they don't already know, sir?
Well, thanks for having me on. I'm traveling in sunny Texas, bluebonnet time. So I'm sitting in my car right now, but the Supreme Court case is a big one. And this is the appeal of Kari Lake and Mark Fincham's case against Adrian Fontes et al. In Arizona, which has gone from district court to Court of Appeals to state Supreme Court to Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and now it's gone to the Supreme Court. And the brilliant move of Kurt Olson, Alan Dershowitz, and Larry Joseph is to see the opening for introducing additional evidence. Because as I understand it, I'm not an attorney. Ordinarily on appeal, the appeals court does not look at the facts. They look at, was the law followed? Was the process fair? They don't look at new evidence. However, the reason the case was appealed or was dismissed in the Arizona courts is because the judge said the injury is speculative and therefore you don't have standing. So the judge ruled that Kari Lake and Mark Fincham had not proved that they had been injured by defective, untrustworthy voting machines, and therefore they didn't have standing. Well, since the argument is, do they have standing or not? Now, Kurt Olson et al. Can bring in new evidence, and the new evidence is just stunning. The username problems, password problems, and the big one, cryptographic keys. So I can give you a brief rundown of all of those, but where do you want to start?
We're going to get them. We're going to get them tomorrow. We're kind of pressed for time, but I want to give your bona fides. We'll get you up tomorrow. We're going to go through all the details tomorrow. I needed to know how we're actually getting this evidence in there and how they're actually showing injury. Walk through. You've been at Texas A&M. You've been an expert about this type of thing for years and years and years. I just want to give your bona fides so people understand that this is what Kurt Olson and Pat McSweeney and Dershowitz, and of course with Mike Lindell to back up Kerry Lake and Fincham, have brought in a team of experts. What's your expertise in this?
Well, my undergraduate degree was in mathematics at Oklahoma Christian. Back then, there weren't any computer science degrees, so I guess that makes me a pioneer, but I didn't realize it at the time. Then I went to Harvard for my master's and my doctorate. I taught computer science and engineering for 37 years, the last 32 years of that at Texas A&M University. And I've also been a consultant to major national and international companies, and I've done work for government agencies, including classified work.
Dr. Daugherty, in your professional opinion, there's no doubt in your mind that these machines can be manipulated and that they're not trustworthy, as you see technologically, to actually give us free and fair count of votes?
That's exactly right. So we've gone over the years from a basically transparent process of hand-marked, hand-counted paper ballots to a basically 100% non-transparent process where ballots go into the machine and numbers come out, but you have no idea what happened in between. Was your vote counted? Was it altered? Was it deleted? You don't know. All you know is ballots went in and numbers came out. That is until Tina Peters made a backup. And when she made a backup in Mesa County, Colorado, that enabled Jeff O'Donnell and me to look inside the machine. And what we saw was that they were creating additional databases, altering or deleting records in that case. In Arizona, the analysis that I first did in Pima County, and the same pattern occurred in Maricopa County, showed an initial front loading for the favored candidate, which then systematically declined all the way to election day. We're talking about mail-in votes because that was the bulk of the votes. And this is a pattern that couldn't happen by chance. So that I established back 2 years ago in Pima County and Maricopa County, and have since seen that pattern replicated all across the country. Between Jeff O'Donnell and his team and me and some people that I work with, we've looked at about 300 counties across the country, and 298 of them show patterns of manipulation. Now, the big news...
And you're saying but you're saying it's mathematically impossible for this just to happen, correct?
Exactly. So let me give you an example from Pima County. This is 2020 presidential election. After the first, so there are about 500,000 votes in that election in Pima County, which is the Tucson area in Arizona. Maricopa County Phoenix is the largest, but Pima is the next largest. So after the first 10% of the votes are counted, so after the first 50,000 votes are counted, the cumulative ratio of Biden to Trump was 75%. Now, if you count the next 25,000 votes, remember these are mail-in. So they come in at random from all over the county, all on different days, no sorting by precinct. There should be no pattern at all. So knowing that counting the first 50,000 votes, the cumulative ratio was 75% Biden. Then you count another 25,000 votes, what will the cumulative ratio be? Well, you shouldn't be able to predict that because that next 25,000 votes might be more heavily for Biden, in which case it would be 76 or 78%, or it might be more heavily for Trump, in which case it might be 62%. You shouldn't have any way of predicting it. And yet with every 25,000 additional votes, Biden's percentage goes 75, 74, 73, 72, 71, all the way to election day 60.
Yeah.
That's like calling red on a roulette wheel 100 times in a row and winning.
Dr. Daugherty, we got to jump. We're going to figure out how to get you in tomorrow by Skype as we go through this. We're going to spend 2 hours in a town hall type setting, and we'll get to drill all the experts, lawyers, process people, technologists, Mike Lindell, all of it. Dr. Daugherty, we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for making this clear, and we're going to spend more time tomorrow to make sure everybody understands how the machines just can't work. It doesn't make any sense. Dr. Daugherty, formerly at Texas A&M, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Steve. Good to be with you.
incredible what these guys have put together for the Supreme Court. I want to finish up tonight on what you would think would be a bastion of freedom. It's not. That's Ireland, my country of my ancestors. We've got Michael Leahy, not Michael Patrick Leahy, but Michael Leahy, who's running in the European parliamentary elections. They're going to be in June, a revolutionary set of elections. They're going to shift the center of gravity from County Clare, Irish Freedom Party. Why does Ireland seem like the most oppressive? They just shut down, Brussels just tried to shut down the National Conservative Convention in a conference in Brussels over the last couple of days, Orban, Nigel Farage. Why is Ireland seem to be, which has so many freedom fighters throughout the world, including here in the United States, why does Ireland seem to be the most oppressive, or appears to be the most oppressive of all these governments, sir?
Well, yes, certainly, Steve, it's running in that direction. Ireland has been under attack for a very long time. I think Ireland is very much of a petri dish for progressivists and for globalists. Ireland, as you will know, was a Christian country until very recently, but Christianity very much came under attack from a variety of different sources. And it was seen that if Ireland can be demoralized, and you would have heard that expression used by Yuri Bezmenov when he showed how to take down a country, that if Ireland can be demoralized, if its people can be separated from their religion, from their national identity, if it can be done in a country like Ireland, then it can be done anywhere. Ireland is a small country. It's prone to very much to outside sources. It has always been an openly traded country and has come under significant outside influence. Now, we have, as you know, joined the European Union some 50 years ago. That made a dramatic change to the Irish psyche. Ireland was always, as you rightly pointed out, a country which valued its independence and valued its autonomy and valued its constitutional democracy. But once we entered the European Economic Community, as it was then, initially it was purely economics, but it gradually became more and more of a single unitary state. And we are now in a situation where 70% of our legislation is passed by outside bodies. And unfortunately, the European Union is not a democratic structure. It's designed to be quite anti-democratic, quite undemocratic. None of the major players that you see in the European Union, such as Ursula von der Leyen, none of these people are elected. And this has had a very corrupting and destructive impact on Irish society. Legislation is made on our behalf by people who are never answerable to elections, to a parliament. And this has had a significantly demoralizing effect on us. You will probably be aware of the draconian hate speech laws that Ireland is attempting to introduce. This is very much at the behest of the European Union. Directives are passed by the European Commission, who, as I say, are not elected, seeking, for example, to eliminate discrimination against people or eliminate xenophobia. And they're then taken up. There are all kinds of ramifications that people don't understand when these directives are passed. The hate speech legislation in Ireland, if you're not aware of it, is truly frightening. It allows that police can enter your house, seize your computers, your telephones, if you're even in possession of something that a third party could regard as being intended to incite hatred, then you can be prosecuted and imprisoned for up to a year. It's a quite extraordinary change for a country which has always valued freedom of speech as an absolutely prime necessity for the continuance of any democracy. But that is what has happened, and it's very frightening. Now, I do think that people are finally waking up to it. There's a great deal of anger in Ireland today. I see that, and this is why our party is beginning to gain some traction. And it's centred largely around the issue of immigration. The levels of immigration to Ireland are unprecedented. Of course, Ireland was traditionally an immigrant country. We sent many, many people to all parts of the world. But the extent of immigration now into Ireland is actually far, far higher than it ever was in the United States. That may seem remarkable. I think the United States at its peak period of immigration had something like 15 or 16% of its population was born outside the country. In Ireland now, the level of immigration is 20% of the people in this country were born outside of Ireland. And in the key demographic, in the demographic between the age of 19 and 39, that figure approaches 33%. That's 1 in 3. So it is very clear that Ireland, which had been a cohesive nation for a very long time, will shortly be in a situation where the native population will be in a minority. That's going to happen much more quickly than people realize, maybe within 10 to 15 years. People are now finally waking up to this, and they're getting very, very angry. A sign of that was given by a referendum result which took place in Ireland some 3 weeks ago, where the government's proposal to effectively abolish the meaning of the word family and to change marriage, the meaning of the word family to any durable relationship that would be the equivalent of a marriage. This was overwhelmingly rejected by the people. It was the worst ever defeat of any government in attempting to introduce a referendum. And the government were very taken aback by it. We have a very monocultural media in this country, but I think when people see the way they have been lied to on the issue specifically of immigration, the government have lost the trust of the people. As somebody once said, trust is like virginity. Once it's gone for good. And the government are not getting that trust back. I'm finding that very much on the canvas now. There's a great deal of anger out there. And the Irish people, when they're roused, they can be very patient and very quiet for a long time. But as you know, when they're roused, they can be devils, and they can cause a lot of trouble. And I think that's what's coming the government's way. And I think this election in June the 7th will be a real... Yep.
It's going to be huge.
Sorry,
We've got to bounce. No, that's okay. Where do they go to find out more about the Irish Freedom Party? Where do they go find out more about you? What's your social media handles? We're going to have you back on and drill down more in this.
Yep. Okay, my social media handle is LeahyElection24.com. LeahyEU-election2024.com. The Irish Freedom Party, you can Google that. You will find more about our party. I'm running in Ireland South, which is approximately half of the constituency, and I would welcome any help or assistance I can get. We get no media coverage whatsoever. The mainstream media completely ignore us. But I think things are going to change. Things are going to change very rapidly in Ireland. So watch this space.
Yeah, watch this space. We're going to make sure you get plenty of media coverage. The War Room has got the back of the freedom of the Irish people. We didn't leave in cattle cars. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. We'll have you back on.
I know.
Appreciate it, sir.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you. Okay, Lou Dobbs is going to follow us. We're live tomorrow. Want everybody still take one more shot. Get to graceforum.org. Sign up. We're going to all day. We're going to be there. 2 shows live, 4 hours, ending with a town hall on the machines. Make sure, thank everybody, the sponsors at Birch Gold, birchgold.com/forum. Go check it out. Gold at all-time high. Why? You see this madness that's happening on Capitol Hill right now. That's what's driving it, the illegitimate Biden regime. We'll get in all that tomorrow. Love to see you guys there at the Academy. If not, we're going to be streaming it all day. All day kind of War Room festival to make sure that we get you guys, the War Room Posse, totally up to speed, since you're the backbone of the MAGA movement. Okay, Lou Dobbs is next. I'm back here tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. We'll be in Las Vegas. We'll see you then.